Hello and welcome to Move the Line, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm Ryan Noonan, joined here, as always, Week 9. I think kind of the faux halfway point of the season here. Connor Allen, what's going on, my friend?
Yeah, not a whole lot. Just going to be us two today, chopping it up, talking about some of the games, futures, a couple other things. But yeah, it's feels weird this season, as they all do. Like you blink and we're already like halfway through the year. But the team is killing it. We're winning money. I mean, it's just awesome. Like I love. There's nothing better than football season and like winning. I mean, it's awesome.
It really is the best. The best part of it, Monday, even if you have kind of a not so great week, that Monday hits Monday morning, you start that process right back over again and you get back on the wagon and that helps. But it's a little bit easier to get back on the wagon when you're coming off of some wins. You've been experiencing that basically all season. I've had a little bit more of a rocky road. But for me to have a really nice week 8 felt really good to come back to the desk on Monday morning for the first time in a couple weeks after kind of down week, drag my feet week, kind of, in the middle, and then, hit the ground running for week 8. So we're going to keep it going. Definitely. And the team is crushing it. This is kind of our intention here this year is to diversify a little bit, bring in some more looks and, be more of a value add for subscribers where hey, you can kind of pick and choose plays, offering more plays for you, knowing that you can't possibly, I don't want to exclude some in our chat because the more I spend time in our Discord with some of our degenerates, some people are getting in on every bet and definitely probably betting 2 to 3x of their own thing. So I don't want to say anyone's not tailing everything, but we just want to give people the ability to kind of mix and match and figure out what they like. And that's why we write what we do and, not just a play, but a detailed write-up to go along with it. So all those things I think add value to our subscribers. Hopefully people are enjoying that and making lots of money. So again, remind people 2 episodes of Move Line each week. This is more sides of totals. Connor and I are going to get into the futures a little bit. I think this is a really good time. We're turning the page here in November. Like I said, halfway point of the season. I think futures start to really take shape here. We can have meaningful conversations and look, they're great for content in like July, right? When we have to do shows and have conversations. I think in terms of being able to understand where you're getting in good based off of what's going on in the league, November's kind of, for me, feels like a good time to start having really meaningful conversations about the market. And we'll do that today here as well. Come back on Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, Move the Line prop drop show. Me, Connor, John Hyslop here talking props, millionaire parlays, alts, ladders, all that stuff. If you're somehow not joining us for that show, you are definitely missing out. Again, subscribe to 444 Bets on the YouTube channel, Move the Line wherever you listen to podcasts, and come back on Friday, 3 Eastern for that show. Great time there as always. Great time to scoop up a betting subscription over at 444. It is our holiday sale. You don't even need a promo code or anything. 444.com/plans. It is discounted on the site. The betting subscription is what you want. It gets access to everything that we do. So any articles, tools, rankings, projections, you're playing DFS, anything like that, obviously access to the Discord that I was talking about. It's where all of our official plays come out first. Great community. NBA is off to a fantastic start. Intern Jake absolutely crushing it. It's been awesome on the NFL side for us as well. Grinding hard, and I don't know what the record is, but the record's really, really good to start. And I know it's bringing just absolute love and joy to your heart because he's just banging unders all over the place. It's Connor Allen all over. So yeah, people need to get in the NBA chat and hang out with us too. And again, you get everything football-wise too, and everything else we're betting on too in the Discord, 444.com/plans. It's already there for you, discounted. If you want to use one of our partners, Rebet is the way to do it. Use promo code 444BET when you download Rebet. It's a sweepstakes app. Lots of different ways to get down on sweepstake apps these days. Buy $10 of Rebet cash with that promo code 444BET, and that's it. You're going to get an email about 48 hours later telling you how to access the 444 betting sub for the rest of the year for no additional cost. So $10, great deal. Check that out. If you have any questions, let us know. All right, buddy. Awards. We'll touch on, I think, all of them here, see what we have thoughts on, just kind of shoot from the hip. MVP is obviously the bell of the ball. Everyone wants to know what happens there. It is basically turned in to a quarterback award. I think AP in 2012 was the last time we saw a non-quarterback. Seeing Josh Allen is the favorite across the market. Pretty good number, I think, on Josh Allen at plus 325. Lamar is your defending champ and has won before. So I'd love to get your thoughts on, I mean, and playing as well as ever, arguably playing better than last year, around like voter fatigue, if that's, something that you think is a real thing here. Mahomes there at 6-1. Jared Goff, who I tried to make the case for in the offseason, at a much larger number. I think you poked a hole in it because we have an outdoors game in like week 15 or 16 in Chicago, which I think is probably still a
Yeah,
viable.
he's cooked.
I'd love to get your thoughts on it, and then kind of where like the line of demarcation on where you think like we should stop looking. I know you have a guy down the board a little bit that you've kind of been banging the table for. Still a great number, still a great look. What are your thoughts on MVP?
Yeah, I think you laid it out well here. I think the top of the board is still pretty fragile. I mean, Lamar was plus 250, plus 225 last week, dropped a win to Cleveland. I mean, their schedule is still tough. Like, this Ravens team is not really like, I think they're a really good team. Lamar's playing awesome, but like at the end of the day, like, you have to be one of the most winningest teams in the league to win MVP, basically, or you have to just be playing absolutely unreal. And so I think Josh Allen being chalk is not a good bet, to be honest. They're running the ball so much, like,
Yeah.
it's going to force like serious negative game script and him like winning them games. I think for him to be like a clear favorite at any point. And same with kind of like Patrick Mahomes, like going on the board, like they just don't really have the weapons anymore. They've been going through guys like DeAndre Hopkins. They said was going to play the Rashee Rice role, despite him never doing that in his entire life, and he didn't. I mean, it's like, exactly, like he didn't do that really. Not quite as much of a yak guy. Going further down the board though, two guys stood out to me. I still really like Jalen Hurts at 20-1. We talked about him at 30-1 last week. The schedule is just like wildly easy, and it's not just like the teams that they're playing are beatable. It's like the defenses that they're playing are not very good. So this team is going to score like a ton of points. If you could bet on any one team, I think to lead the league in points for the rest of the season, I think the Eagles would be one of the top contenders here. And obviously that means Jalen Hurts is going to play extremely well. So I think that's an interesting one. Still 20-1 FanDuel, Caesars. And then one more like way down the board here. This is like, I don't know, like an off-market number that I think is just worth like blindly betting, even though I don't necessarily agree with it. Dak Prescott is 120-1 to win MVP on FanDuel. I mean, like, he's not playing well. The Cowboys aren't playing well, but they have no run game. Like, if for some reason they win the division or like turn it around, like, again, this is one of those things where he's 50-1 on DraftKings. He should probably be like 70-1, 60-1, something like that. 120-1 for a guy like Dak Prescott is just like, to me, seems wild. So again, it's not a bet that I'm making like massively. Probably throw a couple bucks on it just for, again, like to have it, because we talked about it. And I think that, like, again, like we look at our odds screen for the futures thing, and I saw that. I'm like, I mean, he just shouldn't be 120-1, like ever, like at any point in basically any season. I don't think.
I think that's fair. I think he's probably, you're talking about, does he have less than 1% chance of winning? Probably, right? Because this is such a team-driven award too. But I also understand your point. I mean, if they do have these things, right, you have to kind of think. That's why these conversations are interesting, right? We have 8 weeks to go, 9 weeks to go, whatever the regular season. Like, these things are so reactionary to what happened the week prior, right? So you even saw, 100 points gained on Lamar from last week as the favorite, dropping down a spot. So if there's a path to the Cowboys doing anything, it's going to be on the arm and shoulder of Dak Prescott, 1,000%. That is a suspect defense. There's no running game. Like, all the things we talk when we handicap the Cowboys, all those things line up. It is going to have to be Dak. So again, I've made dumber bets at 120. I bet golf outrights. So like I've definitely done worse things than this at 120. So I get it. Didn't jump off the page to me, but I see, the FanDuel is kind of a off-market number relative, especially to DraftKings. So I like it.
Yeah, I mean, just a little unique. I'm curious, where are you at? Any long shots, or are you just poking the top of the board here?
Yeah, I haven't. Trying to think of the narratives or what would need to happen. So, like, yeah, Mahomes isn't lighting the world on fire by any means. And again, he is fairly or unfairly graded on a curve against historic Patrick Mahomes stuff, right? Like, he's just been unbelievable. What happens if they go like, they lose one game? They go 16-1, right? All of a sudden it's like, oh, it's Mahomes. He hasn't turned it over. They're playing awesome. Is there fatigue on it being Mahomes, and he's already won and they win all the time and people are going to look for a new way? That's part of why I do think that the Josh Allen number is one to watch. I think you're probably right. Jumping in with 2+ months to go at 3-1, probably not a good use of your funds right now. But again, even if he is, I think people love Josh Allen. I think he's liked in the media, and these things matter, right? We go back to our Sirianni Dayball stuff. Like media stuff matters, perception matters in these award markets. They're, what it takes to actually win these things is less of on the field at times. Josh not winning before, they're 4 games up basically in the division. If they're like, I don't know, 1 or 2 seed, he's been really damn good, not turning the ball over. I think he threw his first pick in like 9 weeks last week. Just playing really good football. So even though he's not putting up gaudy numbers as well, I think he is someone to really watch. I don't know if I buy a rookie quarterback at 16-1, being the best number on Jane Daniels as an MVP candidate, but I think the Hurts call is really, really strong, to be honest, relative to the rest of the stuff on the board, because they have a path, I think, legitimately to win the division. They do have a path to being one of the better teams in the NFC. And these things matter. Like where your team is in the pecking order of things matters for basically all these awards. So Hurts is kind of at 20 does stand out a little bit to me, but I just kind of want to monitor the Josh Allen number and see if we can get something a little bit better. Cause I think, right, if they push the Chiefs for number 1 seed, he plays really good football. I think people aren't going to want to give it to Lamar just because he won last year, even if he's playing better. Right. So
yeah, that's fair. I think that's completely fair. And yeah, I agree on the Hurts number. I think that's just like, I mean, the only teams above him, or the only players above him are on like the Lions and then Jaden Daniels on Washington, who's in division. The Lions have to play like basically, I mean, the entire NFC North, which is some of the best teams in the league for the rest of the season. And then Jalen Hurts gets to play the Commanders and Cowboys and Giants. And, I mean, they're just like the schedule is just great for him, whereas it's not as good as for everyone else. So, I mean, maybe, I don't know, if Jaden outduels Jalen Hurts, then obviously, I mean, Jaden's going to be squarely in contention, but yeah, I'm not quite there yet. But I've also kind of been down on Jaden the entire process. So wouldn't be surprising to be wrong here again.
I love to keep up for Brock Purdy and Joe Burrow. These are egregious prices on these guys currently. Like it makes no sense that Joe Burrow is kind of in this mix at 22, 25-1. They're 2-6. They have to win out, and he has to be like, I don't know, like 50 touchdown season Tom Brady type of numbers for him to do it. If Brock Purdy can't do it last year in that setup, when like there was like a really good momentum, they were dominant, no shot. He should not be anywhere near 20-1 to win this MVP at all. So a pretty big drop off. CJ Stroud, makes sense. I think the media would want to get behind Stroud, but again, they keep leaving you wanting a little bit more, right? Like in terms of what they're doing offensively. So how about offensive player of the year? It's been, I haven't noted on this. So Mahomes was in 18, the last time that this has been a double dip MVP and offensive player of the year. They started to differentiate and kind of at that next point go elsewhere. We did have one version of a quarterback winning offensive player of the year and not winning the MVP, which is really rare. Drew Brees in 2008 won offensive player of the year. Peyton Manning won MVP. So there is a path to it. We have seen this then go mostly to running backs and wide receivers the last handful of years. Derrick Henry, your prohibitive favorite in the market currently, 120, 140 out there in the market. Saquon right behind him, little short, basically plus 350. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb right behind that. And then you get into some of the quarterbacks that I think are interesting. Lamar at 20, Josh Allen at 30. What are your thoughts on offensive player of the year?
Yeah, I think Lamar here is kind of interesting too. Like if say he doesn't win MVP, but it's like crushing, I think that fits exactly what happened with Drew Brees. If I remember correctly, Drew Brees threw for like 5,000 something yards. Like it's something crazy, but the team like wasn't that good. But he was like awesome. And so they're like, well, we can't give this guy MVP because the team sucks, but he played really well. So, like we got to give him something. So, I mean, Lamar's team is going to be good. Like he's going to be squarely in the mix for MVP, but say Josh Allen or someone else, Jalen Hurts, crossing our fingers, comes out of nowhere and wins MVP. Like he's probably going to be, if he balls out, he could be very much in the mix. I don't think 20-1 is a necessarily bad price on Lamar. One that I thought like way down the board, sticking with my Eagles. I mean, people are going to think I'm an Eagles fan after this. One that I thought was really interesting because the guy's been injured. AJ Brown is averaging 102 receiving yards per game. He's 100-1.
Yeah.
Again, if this goes along with our Eagles thoughts, he's playing against literally some of the worst secondaries in the league for the next like 10 games, basically, or it's the rest of the season. Like literally all bottom 10 like secondaries. There is no reason to believe that he's not going to just put up like 75 to 150 yards a game, basically the entire rest of the season. So, I mean, again, this is only on 101 on DraftKings, 71 on FanDuel is fine. DraftKings let me bet $3.45 on it. I wouldn't bet that much more, again, probably like 15, 20 bucks, just throw at it. But like, I think that this is actually a reasonable spot to buy in because he's crushing. Like the offense we know is going to play better. So 100 to 1, I don't think is egregious. Obviously, is a long shot. If the season continues how it's going, Derrick Henry's probably just going to win because he's scoring like 20 touchdowns. But he can get injured. Ravens can fall behind. When they fall behind, Derrick Henry like doesn't play basically. So, I mean, things can happen.
Yeah, I mean, not getting into the market is an option, right? Because I think you make a good point. Like Henry makes a ton of sense. There's no way, shape, or form that anyone should be betting Derrick Henry currently at prices to win Offensive Player of the Year. There are plenty of outs for that to come crashing down at such an egregious, basically coin flip at this point. It's like Henry versus the market in prices. Lamar, and part of why I tried to lay that out and I looked into it was the Lamar piece. Lamar at 20, I think is very, very interesting. To your point, like he just continues to cook and they're competitive. He's really good. But one of these other MVP candidates that we talked about really kind of emerges, and it's kind of a coin flip there. I think you'll see voters go against Lamar and be like, yeah, you know what? We're going to give him Offensive Player of the Year. I'm going to give my vote for that instead. So I feel like I'm still honoring Lamar in his season, but we're going to go somewhere else with the MVP. There's precedent for it too. So again, not like super recent, but like there are no hard and fast rules that can dictate this can't go to a quarterback. It obviously can. So, and we've seen the MVP win this as well. So that is also a possibility. So Lamar at 20 makes sense. I like the call out of AJ Brown, to be honest. The other one that I was going to ask you too is like, what's the amount of games that you can miss? I think this is a valid conversation for MVP and Jordan Love too. Like how many games can you miss to still be kind of in the mix? Obviously missing games, you then have to elevate your play because Nico Collins was awesome before he went down. He's also at 101. So that's also another one that's been appealing. He comes back, hits the ground running, starts doing what he was doing beforehand. He'd have to play above AJ Brown level because he missed those games. But what do you think is like, can you miss 4 games and still win one of these awards?
I think you can miss 4 games at this point in the season. You can't miss 4 games at the end of the season. Like you can't, you have to be 100% healthy for the last like 5-6 games, basically like 100%. So like, that's kind of why at this point, like we're like buying the dip on injured players, things like that. Like someone else gets injured at the top of the board, the landscape entirely shifts. Like Derrick Henry gets injured tomorrow. Like, I mean, again, knock on wood, but it's, I mean, like the landscape shifts entirely. So it's one of those things that a lot of it's going to be luck and flukiness at the end of the season. I think you could probably he could even miss another game or 2 in the middle of the season. If he comes back and puts up like 5 200-yard games or 4 200-yard games, which is actually in the range of outcomes without Stephon Diggs, like I don't think it's that crazy. I think he could win. I mean, like, I think that's definitely possible.
Defensive Player of the Year. We've an emerging favorite here as well. TJ Watt is prohibitive favorite, plus 100 basically across the board, plus 105 on Caesars. A little drop off to Will Anderson Jr. Numbers as good as 6. Chris Jones in the mix, 14, kind of a rogue number relative to the rest of the stuff on the board for Chris Jones, 14 on FanDuel. Dexter Lawrence absolutely cooking this season. They put his sack prop, Connor, at 4.25. I mean, an absolute smash at 4.25. He's got 9. I mean, that was free money
already. Did I get paid out on this yet?
He was our cover boy for you should get paid out on that. Cover boy on our preseason prop bets. I mean, 4.25, just egregious. Bosa at 15. Xavier McKinney, who's just making interceptions every week, which is kind of wild, at 22. At no point has a player won Defensive Player of the Year on a team that does not go to the playoffs. So this is a start crossing dudes off. You start to cross off Dexter Lawrence here. Start to have conversations about some other guys that I think is interesting. Now, again, we've not been, I think we're still probably, it's getting harder, Connor, 6-2. We've not been there on the Steelers. They're now like minus 400 to make the playoffs. Schedules gets way harder, but Watt can't win this award without them making the playoffs. Again, you can get 3-1 for them to not make the playoffs, which is obviously an alternative to this too. But thoughts on defensive player of the year?
Yeah, I think I'm going to let you drive most of the defensive awards here because you just like know significantly more than I do about these markets. Like I want to take longer shots because I do think that we had this. We talked about this all offseason. Like the Steelers are going to play great in the first half of the season, and we can't be prisoners of the moment of what we saw. And they're playing awesome. Their defense looks great. Their offense, Russ looks very good. To be honest, he looks fantastic for what
He
is
does.
asked of him. That's not going to, I don't think that's going to remain the same here. We again talked about it last week, even with Clark, like when the Steelers fall behind, what's going to happen? I have very, very low expectations in those scenarios. So, and that's should happen a reasonable amount, especially with the Browns starting Jameis here, second half of the season. Like this is, they get the Browns twice. What is it? Chiefs, Bengals, I believe Ravens twice. Like they have, a lot of really good teams. So, I'm selling the TJ Watt at even money here, but
Yeah.
I don't know where else to go with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Also selling the TJ Watt. I mean, he is awesome. He is awesome, but this is just a not tenable number at all. What was really, really interesting to me, and looking next on the board is Will Anderson Jr. at 6-1. The actual league leader in pressures, which again, a better indicator than sacks, right? Sacks are just, a end result and they matter. There's something to be said for converting the pressures into sacks. By margin, your league leader in pressures is Will Anderson's teammate, Daniil Hunter, who is a sack and a half behind Will Anderson Jr. He is 40-1 to win Defensive Player of the Year. Why Anderson Jr. is 6-1 and Daniil Hunter is 40 makes absolutely no sense. The team leads the league in pressures, and it's mostly driven by these two. They've both been awesome. And Anderson, I think, is part of it's the pedigree, right? We're reigning Defensive Rookie of the Year, but it doesn't make any sense to me at all that there's a massive 34-point gap basically in the market for these two players where it's a playoff team. I think we both believe the Texans are a playoff team. There's a clear path that, all of a sudden you start to see a higher conversion of sacks for Daniil Hunter, who has been one of the most consistent sack producers in the league for the last 5 years. So it's not like he's playing out of nowhere good. Like he's just been awesome for a long time in Minnesota. And now he's doing it in Houston. So that jumps out to me as a longer down the board shot at 40 that just feels mispriced. This has also been something that's kind of gone to edge rushers, or at least defensive linemen over the last handful of years too. So that would be somewhere I'd want to go. Someone like McKinney or Patrick Surtain, like, man, you got to like break records. You got to have like an insane amount of team level success and actual individual success. Basically for Surtain to be a play, like you almost need the Broncos to win the division. He's only got 2 picks. I know he's really good, but he's got no shot. McKinney's part of probably a playoff team. He's got a bunch of picks. The rest of it's just kind of, okay, he's a good player, but is he Defensive Player of the Year good? No. So give me Hunter as a nice little like watch there at 40 as you get further down the board, because you still have to cross guys out because playoffs matter here. Historically, it's been the Max Crosby argument in the last couple of years. Like he's 20 in some spots. Like you just can't. You can't go there because they're not making the playoffs. So Fred Warner's been awesome. But I'm worried about what's going on in the team there. That'd probably be the other one down the board. Fred 35 on DraftKings, but Hunter's probably my favorite down the board look.
Cool. Yeah, I like that logic there. Just quick shout out and rest in peace to Aiden Hutchinson, who I know we bet
For
on
real,
preseason
dude.
that I think would have won pretty handily here, to be honest, on his trajectory. 7.5 sacks in 5 games. Lions are crushing for the most part. So
Checked all the boxes. Yeah. I mean, Russell, rest in peace, over like 11 and a quarter sacks. He probably would have that now or close to it the way he was cruising. Yeah, it's tough. Offensive Rookie of the Year. I mean, are we outside of a 2-man race, or is this even a 2-man race? Obviously, the head-to-head win last week was pretty impactful. Jane Daniels minus 400 on DraftKings. Caleb out to 10-1 on FanDuel is best in market there, which is interesting. Can you make a case for someone else? Or, I mean, obviously we're not laying 400 on Jaden Daniels, but is there a non-Jaden case to be made?
Yeah. So, I mean, Jaden Daniels is one of like, dude, just don't bet him at minus 400, please. Like, for the love of God. I mean, this guy is a walking injury. Like, he's already gotten banged up once and he toughed it out. Like, he takes hard hits. He's built like a twig. Really good quarterback, but just, I mean, don't lay any futures with this guy. Bet on him week to week if you want to bet something on him. I'll go way down the board again because this has been my MO. Brock Bowers at 65 to 1 on DraftKings leads all tight ends in receiving yards as a rookie. I mean,
It's a
like,
bad number too,
yeah,
comparatively.
like, I mean, he's 28 to 1 at FanDuel, 25 to 1 at Caesars. Like, I think he should be higher than that. Like, I don't know. Brian Thomas Jr. is out for a couple weeks. He should be like below him. I mean, Bo Nix is playing fine, but they played against a bunch of cupcakes. So, like, I'm not betting on him either. I don't know. I think Brock Bowers should be like, again, if he keeps this up, which it seems like he is, he's the only guy out there capable of doing anything for the Raiders. Like, I don't know. I mean, Brock Bowers is going to break the tight end rookie receiving record. And he's probably going to lead all tight ends in receiving. So I don't know. 65 to 1 to me seems crazy if Caleb doesn't keep playing well. Like, I mean, he played really well against a bunch of bad defenses, didn't play all that well against the Commanders, who I think are playing better defense, but are still maybe aren't a good defense. And now gets, the Cardinals, which I think will be another good test because they're not a very good defense. So if he doesn't play well here. Like, I mean, it's another warning sign. So yeah, I think Bauer 65 to 1 is interesting.
Yeah, it jumps off the screen in terms of relative to where it's available elsewhere, and then just some of the guys around him, as you kind of highlighted too, Brian Thomas. The other one is down the board, and again, I think having quarterback make majority or all the starts, you have such a leg up, which is why if something happened to Jane Daniels where Bo Nix gets real interesting, just because they're competitive. Right now they're 5-3. He's been okay. He gets real short, real quick. Malik Neighbors has been awesome. In any other scenario, where you don't have a bunch of quarterbacks making every start, he becomes real appealing at 28 to 1 on FanDuel. And again, this is not one. I think this is one of those awards where team success matters less than others. Like if you're just balling out, you can win this award. So it doesn't really matter what happens to the Giants. Doesn't really matter what happens to the Raiders. I think Brock Bowers and Malik Neighbors have standalone value regardless of their team. So yeah, just kind of a monitor. You just kind of wait and see if, unfortunately, I don't want to like jinx Jane Daniels and don't want to actually get hurt, miss games. He's kind of already been hurt, almost missed a game. It's very, very possible. And this is a market to kind of watch if something happens there. Otherwise,
for sure.
Watching 100 to 1 on Drake May if he can get healthy, clear concussion protocol. I'm just joking. It's too far. It's gone too far. Defensive rookie of the year. Jared Verse is your prohibitive favorite here. Minus number, which is also interesting. Plus 100 on DraftKings is the best price. And then down the board, really kind of a weak year for defensive rookie of the year, which is why I think you see the board. And kind of what we thought even coming in, right? Which is a draft where defense was ignored for the first, 14, 15 picks of the draft until the Colts grabbed Laiatu Latu. And he's second on the board at 6 to 1. Do you have any thoughts on defensive rookie of the year?
Like, are any of these guys any good? Like, I mean, this is like,
yeah, but I mean, like massively
fine,
impactful.
right?
Like, I don't know. That's kind of crappy. It's a crappy class.
How did Cooper DeJean play last week? Because I know
Good.
that I've been betting unders against, the guys that he's been playing against, a little bit, and it's been working pretty well. I just,
Gosh, you love the Eagles so much.
I know how many I've talked about an Eagles player in every single market.
He's playing pretty well.
I mean, 25 to 1, I don't mind that. But again, you need like stats, like just like being like, oh yeah, like no one threw my way is not really, it's not a viable case for the media members to vote on you.
That's the thing, right? You do, especially if you're not getting sacks. These defensive markets love sacks so much. You do need like picks. You need a splash play in December, right? Like you need a game-saving pick 6 or like something that happens and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, you know what? He's been playing really well anyway. And all of a sudden he's kind of lingering. And all of a sudden you wake up and he was 25 and now he's like 8. Like, oh, what happened? Well, great game on an island game or, in a late Sunday window. I think that's how fragile this particular market is. Verse has been good. Better than I thought, playing more than I thought, getting a ton of pressures, not converting a high level of sacks, but getting a ton of pressures. It's a pretty poor defense. Does he win this award if there's another guy that's pretty close and the Rams don't make the playoffs? I don't know. It definitely doesn't feel like he should be priced there. No one's really making the case to be really close to him. I have a deep down the board, deep dive, and it's the same premise as your Cooper DeJean thought is you're going to need something more than just playing well. You're going to have to make some picks, some interceptions, make some good plays. But I banged the drum all draft season for my guy out of Michigan, 2nd round pick, Mikey Sanderstill, cornerback who is maybe 5'7", generously. Small little guy, but an absolute dog, Connor. Like willing run stopper has been awesome. And I wanted to comment on your tweet because I saw you had a tweet today talking about the change in the Commanders defense, and they've been playing better. And they've made a big change. They took Sanderson from being depending on how often your team runs 11, 65, 75% snap guy, and they're putting him on the outside, and he's holding up. DJ Moore last week, Roma Dunze last week, even though he's undersized, he's really good. Like I said, without a doubt, if this kid was 6'1", he was a top 10 pick last year. He's not 6'1". That size in the perimeter is hard, but he's really, really, really good. FanDuel has a 150 number on Mikey Sanderson. So if this is a playoff team, this defense starts to play better and really starts to prove what we're kind of seeing recently. It does coincide with a shift of him moving outside and playing every snap instead of being a part-timer. He puts together one of those splash plays, whatever, starts to make a couple of interceptions, some like tackles in the backfield, something that gets attention other than just like, oh, this guy's playing really well. Then he's way off price at 150. So again, longer shot for sure. But I think the 150 on FanDuel is something that's probably worth a sprinkle on maybe some beer and pizza money.
I just bet it. I was looking at the prices while you're talking, and I'm like, how far do I got to scroll for this guy? I'm like scrolling. Then I see, 40 to 1 on DraftKings, 150 to 1 on FanDuel. And Noonan likes this guy. I'm like, all right, I got to at least throw a little bit, a couple bucks on it. Yeah. I mean,
I don't think it's an accident. Like it's hard to say. Like, we have priors on what these teams are defensively, and we saw it early in the season. I think the Commanders early defensively were who we thought they were. But I think there is something to be said for, we've seen these Dan Quinn defenses have these pops, right? They play kind of an aggressive style. He likes to play man more. He likes to blitz from the second level more. Actually, why I like Sanderson, like he's a guy that you can blitz from the corner. He did it a ton at Michigan. You get those like strip sack plays. Like these are the type of plays that like can turn a narrative award situation like this into, him being all of a sudden you wake up and he's 60. Oh, what happened? Now it's all of a sudden we have some LCLV that we feel pretty good about as we get to December. So again, because this award of all of them feels like the thinnest, shots down the board probably make the most sense. So that's definitely by far my favorite.
Yeah, no, I like that too. Just like the Commanders since week 4, 4th in EPA per play, 1st in per dropback EPA, 5th in dropback success rate, which is like they were like literally, I mean, the worst for like all last year and the first 3 weeks. They were not good again. They got kind of still smoked by the Ravens a little bit, but a lot of that's been on the ground. Like their secondary has been playing pretty well. Again, albeit against like kind of shitty opponents, like it's like the Bears, Panthers, a couple other teams, but still like, again, like they were bad all of last year against bad opponents. Like no matter who it was, they were just getting rinsed. Justin Fields threw for like 400 against them. I mean, that says whatever you need to know. That was like career highs from Justin Fields against them. That says enough.
Yeah, that's a good point. So still wait and see on the Commanders. But yeah, it's definitely something to watch here. Comeback player of the year. I mean, this is always one that I hate so very much because it felt like no one knew what coming back from was. They tried to put some parameters around it. How that's executed from the voter standpoint seems to be something we don't know yet. Kirk Cousins, your favorite, that plus 175, plus 150 on FanDuel. This is not everywhere, I don't think. So you have to watch your markets. J.K. Dobbins, Burrow, DeMar Hamlin actually playing good football. I don't know when he's coming back from now. Like, is he coming? Can you come back from something 2 years ago? Because I don't know what happened last year for him to come back, for other than just not being good and not playing. But he's right there in the mix as well. What are your thoughts? Any thoughts on comeback play of the year?
Yeah, I think Nick Chubb at like 9 to 1 on MGM plus 750 on FanDuel is kind of interesting. He played really well against the Ravens last week. He's basically seized back the entire role. I think it was like 17 touches or something like that in his second week back. I mean, guy's going to he's an absolute beast. So like, if you're betting on anyone in this market, like, this team just seems better too with Jameis, like all around. Like he's gonna, if Nick Chubb rolls off, maybe 7-8 touchdowns at the end of the season, is playing well, like he'll be right next to Kirk Cousins. So it'll be like more like a 50-50 proposition there. I mean, I have a tough time saying that Kirk won't win if he stays healthy, to be honest, because he's slinging it. He's playing pretty well.
Yeah.
But Nick Chubb again, like I mean, Nick Chubb was only played half the season. He like whatever, like broke his leg like in half. It was just like brutal scene last year. So I mean,
Tough.
I don't know. Possible.
People love Nick Chubb too. He's not been a guy that's like always going to be up for awards because of the nature of the running back position. So it's like one of those things that people would love to get him in the mix on. So yeah, if you're looking a little bit further down the board, I think he's probably viable. I also agree with your Kirk takes. At plus 175, plus 150 is probably properly priced favorite. Nothing you should be grabbing still this far out for all the reasons we've talked about with the other awards. Christian Gonzalez is playing really good football. He's not going to win this award. He's 100-1. Unfortunately, the Pats might win, 4 games. And again, he's going to have to like get 8 picks or something crazy to do that. But, he's been playing good football. So the rest of it's not super exciting for me. We'll wrap with Coach of the Year. Then we'll get into some Week 9 thoughts here. Dan Quinn on DraftKings is your favorite at plus 220. O'Connell there at 5-1, Sean Payton 550, Jim Harbaugh 6-1 are your favorites. Andy Reid, Dan Campbell right behind there too. Any thoughts on Coach of the Year? Where's our sprinkle down the board?
Yeah, this one's a tough one. I mean, I don't think I've really been that good at this market, to be honest. So you might just have a better hold on this than me. It's the Sirianni thing still is in my head from like 3 years ago.
Yeah, you shook a little bit, and rightfully so. It was a great bet.
It felt like a great bet, and then it
was 3 months. It was, or you made it during the summer, so you had a great bet in your pocket for like 4 or 5 months until you didn't.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Quinn being plus 220 makes a ton of sense. Like if the Commanders make the playoffs, he's probably winning the award, to be honest, because they were not projected to be very good. Same with Kevin O'Connell. Like, I mean, if the Vikings continue to dominate, it makes sense that one of those two guys are probably in a good spot. Sean Payton and the Broncos, there's like a lot of really good coaches. These top 4 with Harbaugh and Payton too, like these are all like legit, really good stories with teams that like are being turned around and like coach very well. Like I have a tough time going too far down the board, but I think you said you had one, right? Or no?
No, this is definitely one that I think is a late ad. Because and maybe that's also my mentality based off of what happened there with Dayball and Sirianni. Was like there was no doubt that Sirianni was the right call. We're heading into December, right? And then it switched so quickly. A New York narrative. They weren't expected to do well, and that's kind of your point. I think with these top 4, that's kind of something that is required for Coach of the Year. This is why like Andy Reid never wins this award. Bill Belichick's barely ever won this award. You're basically coaching. It's about like exceeding expectations almost as much as anything else. That's kind of the hole in the Matt LaFleur here, is that he's coaching his face off like by any means that you would probably try to determine that. He's at 12-1, but the Packers, everyone thought they were going to be pretty good coming into the season. So like, it's really hard for him to make a jump ahead of some of these other teams that are way outperforming where our preseason expectations were. So that gets really, really tricky. Same thing as Sean McVay. Like, all right, they kind of have to win the division almost. I don't know. The one that would be interesting is Mike McDonald. If the Seahawks kind of get back to what they looked like they were early, and Mike McDonald was sitting at the top of this board not very long ago, and they started to scuffle a little bit. Big one in the division this week, which we'll get to shortly, but McDonald at 35. Be kind of a number that I would monitor, because I think he checks the boxes that we require, even though the Seahawks are kind of like, fringe playoff team coming into the season expectation wise. If they actually win this division, start to play some really good football, I think he'd be a driving force for that.
For sure.
But that's it. Yeah. All right, buddy. I think it's a good conversation. I think it's fun to start to have these as we kind of get closer to the tail end of the season. So we'll check back periodically, but let's jump into a couple of the exciting games here on the Week 9 slate. Robbed a little bit of what I think is going to be an exciting game. Maybe it still is. Lions are on the road in Green Bay. Obviously, it looks like probably no Jordan Love. Did not practice today, riding the bike on the side with a groin injury. We have Malik Willis, which exceeded expectations, definitely, both last week and the 2 times he had to start early in the season. We have seen the market react, though, pretty drastically. Lions are 3.5-point road favorites in some spots. There's a juicy minus 118.3 out there as well. 40.5 is the total. What are your thoughts here on Lions and Packers?
Yeah, this opened at 4.5 even too, because they were like just not expecting to play. Jordan Love didn't practice today on Wednesday. Without him, I have a really tough time backing the Packers here. With Jordan Love, I'm kind of interested. I think this line secondary is a little bit suspect. Without getting pressure, we've seen them be a little bit leaky. But the Lions offense is just, I mean, awesome. Like they're just an absolute horse at this point. So it's really tough to fade them, especially against the Packers defense that frankly hasn't played all that well this season. So yeah, I mean, I think if we get Malik Willis here and we can find there's a -3 at Bet Rivers. I mean, I'll probably be laying it with the Lions. I know that Malik that's burned me in the past, but I still think he stinks. So I mean, I'm not ready to say that one or two good games that I'm ready to say that Malik Willis is back or exists. Not he was never there. So yeah, there's no back.
No, he exists, but yeah, I mean, again, I think it's coaching. I think like this guy took a ton of sacks in college, took a ton of sacks last year with Tennessee, and saw this on Next Gen Stats. He's getting the ball out so quickly. 36% of Willis's attempts have been behind the line of scrimmage. Like, it is just like get it to Jaden Reed and go. Like just dump off to the running backs. Like just let someone else create. He took some shots down the field, had some success, but they're so like just get the ball out, get the playmakers. Good offensive line. To your point, the Lions pass rush obviously lost quite a bit with Hutch, but they've kind of pivoted. They are since Hutch went down week 7, they're blitzing at the league's highest rate. 46% of the dropbacks, the Lions are blitzing. So that is their way to kind of work around this. Other guys have gone down too. I mean, they lost Marcus Davenport early in the season. Josh Pascal comes in the week after Hutch, plays really good. Like, oh, this kid's exciting. They've liked him quite a bit, and they drafted him in Kentucky in that Hutch draft. He goes down. He's hurt. So like they got absolutely nobody's on the edge here. So they're having to find any ways to generate pressure that they can. So interested to see if, how does Willis respond with the blitz. I think it just ends up being more short passes and yak for some of his receivers, but it's really hard to step in front of the Aloha Blue train right now. I think maybe Lions team total would probably be my favorite way. I just can't see a scenario where they're not hanging 28-30 in the spot against the Packers. So yeah, it was going to be an awesome game. I think it's probably still entertaining, but sucks. This is my NFC Championship game, and hopefully we get Love back. And when this is in Detroit, we get a rematch because those games were interesting last year. I mean, remember Green Bay went into Detroit and boat raced them. No one was expecting that. So next Sunday afternoon game, Chicago on the road in Arizona. We are looking at Arizona as a short 1-point favorite basically across the market. Total is the same everywhere else, 44.5 as well. You kind of touched on it there. I don't really know what to make of the Bears' performance against Washington. Coming out of the bye, definitely had higher expectations for what we saw. Is there something to be said for Washington's defense playing better? What they're doing is generating a ton of pressure. Washington, I mean, they got to Caleb like 52% of the time. They got pressure on his dropbacks. It's insane. That's kind of been going on all year for the Bears, but that was even higher than normal. Yeah, thoughts on Bears and Cardinals?
Yeah, that's definitely, I mean, it's been the Bears bugaboo all season. Like, it's like, Houston just absolutely demolished them, bringing 5 basically every single time. If I remember correctly, the Cardinals don't blitz very often. Like, and they don't get pressure very often, right?
They do not. They're 30th in pressure rate. Only the Panthers and Falcons are worse. They just lost Dennis Gardeck for the season. That should not be a name that we reference or a name that should matter. But for them, it does. He leads the team with 3 sacks. Like, they have nothing pressure wise. So to your point, like there's so many reasons why Caleb should, I don't know, say cook, but he should be way better in the spot. If he's not,
I mean, he played like awesome in other games where they didn't get pressure. And like,
correct.
If you give him a little bit of time and like, there's those clips of him like going through multiple reads against Carolina and just like dissecting them, he looked awesome. I kind of think we're going to see something similar here. I like Chicago in the spot. On the other side too, Arizona's offense has had a lot of real issues against like any good defense. Like, and not even good. Like, they've actually only played well in like 2 games. It was against the Rams and the Dolphins. Every other game, they've kind of been, I mean, they played well against the Niners. kind of. I mean, I think
Yeah.
there was like a special teams or like random, like, it was like some random stuff that happened there. Um, like they just haven't played all that well this season, and the Bears defense is good. Like they let up a lot of yards to Jaden Daniels. Again, this is the number one offense in the league heading into the game, basically in terms of EPA, and they didn't let up a single red zone touchdown, if I remember correctly, or maybe it was one red zone touchdown to Brian Robinson, I believe, and then they obviously had the Hail Mary. But it's like they were bend but don't break, which is fine. I mean, that keeps you in games, and so like I think the Bears win here, and I think they win by more than 3 points. Which I know I'm wearing a Bears shirt. We got Fanatics gift cards, so I, just like bought some random Bears swag and random stuff like that. So
Yeah, we got a Bears watch party for the company this weekend. So yeah, it feels good to maybe back them and feel like they actually do have a live actual shot, and we don't have to just have the ticket because we're watching them in the bar together. But I think the Cardinals are. I think their defense is clearly the worst unit here, and it's a bad defense. Like there's some players in the back. I love Budda Baker so much, but like the rest of this defense isn't good. They're last in yards per drive. They're last in time possession per drive. Like they just don't get off the field. They keep you on for third downs. Again, when you're worse than Carolina in some stuff defensively, that's tough. Only Carolina's worse in points per drive, percentage of drives that result in a score. But they're second in those metrics. So you can't generate pressure in this league. Man, you got to have some heroes on the outside, and they do not have that either. So it just, it gets kind of bad. I know like they're 4-4. It definitely surprised some people. I've seen some people talk up some Cardinal stuff in like the futures market. And it's so thin to me. I just do not see it. I still think, to your point, offense is not something that I have a ton of trust in. Good to see them get Marv cooking a little bit. James Conner's playing really good. So like, this is not a team though. The Bears, we're just going to have to outscore them with this Bears defense, which I still think is solid. And it's had some injuries. And I think if they get everyone back here, if they get Kyler Gordon back and Jaquan Brisker back, I think that's a little bit tougher sledding for Arizona here. So I like the Bears quite a bit. Another late afternoon Sunday game. The Rams are in Seattle. Rams 2-point road favorite here. 48.5 is the total. Both teams gotten healthy a little bit. Rams felt like a new look team, basically, getting Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua back. DK Metcalf back as well for Seattle. Connor, thoughts on Rams Seahawks?
Yeah, it feels like a great buy low spot on the Seahawks for me. I like the Rams. They're both teams are like seemingly trending in the other opposite directions after last week with the Rams getting their guys back. Puka Nacua playing well, coming off the upside win against the Vikings, whereas the Seahawks were just boat raced by Buffalo. I mean, again, like this Rams defense is horrible. Like the Seahawks offense should have plenty of success here, and then this Rams offense, I think they're good. Puka Nacua is getting healthier. Cooper Kupp to me didn't look fully healthy. He was like, I don't know, 70%, something like that. And I think that they're going to have some success offensively, but again, in the day, you're getting them as underdogs here. And I think genuinely believe Seattle's the better team here in total. So I like Seahawks money line here. I think it's kind of an interesting look.
I like the Seahawks too. Seahawks, is a viable teaser leg for you too at -1.5, 2 through the 3 and through the 7 is also really nice. I mean, they should be able to run the football on LA. It just can they even kind of commit to running the football? I know that was frustrating last week.
Yeah, they say it, and then they're like, "Nah, we're not going to do that." Or they fall behind and they're like, "Nope, never mind." Or they have like a couple of runs that just like don't go anywhere, or like the guy misses a block, and then Kenneth Walker. There was multiple times where Kenneth Walker had to just beat a corner and he's like off for 40, 50 yards. And he only ran the ball like a couple of times and he like gets tackled on the last tackle. I'm like, dude, this is like legitimate game-changing plays, one play, and they don't commit to it. They just like leave it alone because they don't have DK Metcalf. So hopefully he's back this week.
Seemed like a week to do it too, where it seems like you can win there sometimes against Buffalo. No DK. It's like, all right, let's just shift philosophy a little bit. Let's get Kenneth Walker going in the passing game. Let's feed him on the ground. And they just, Ryan Grubb cannot help himself. He just wants to drop Geno back a ton, that's my only scare here. The Rams have been generating pressure. We talked about with the Jared Verse stuff. They haven't been getting home a ton, but like Seattle's been partially because they drop back so often. They've been giving up a lot of pressures on the season, but skewed. Geno's been doing a decent job of avoiding those. But yeah, I think that Seattle's the better team, and I like them getting points at home. It feels like an overreaction to just Buffalo's awesome. And they, they get their ass kicked, but Buffalo's, maybe a legit Super Bowl contender. Right. So I'm just not buying the Rams defense being that good. So Indy on the road, Sunday Night Football. against the Vikings. Vikings are 5-point favorites. 46.5 is the total. Connor, Anthony Richardson, man, it's tough.
Yeah, rest in peace. He's your guy. I know. I mean, I'll let you have the floor here. I'm sure we have a lot of similar things to say.
Yeah, I mean, I have a few thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts. I think it's overall bad. Like it's a really bad decision. Now, here's what I'll say in Couch. I have a lot of expanded thoughts on that. The variable here is him tapping himself out. And that seems to be whether they're telling us that's the case or not. I don't want to say like a loss of the locker room, but like the offensive line was pretty outspoken about that. Like his center, like the guy who you like touch his taint 60 times a game. When like you should have a pretty strong bond with that guy, and that guy is willing to like openly come out and question you after the game and be like, you can't do that, dude. Now, watching the play, I thought he hurt his hip and he kind of got hit in the head at the same time. So I thought maybe there was something there. And maybe I'm thinking too, he's just kind of a young kid. Maybe he was just saying that after the game. I haven't heard this, but my thought was like, he didn't want to make an excuse for the hip, which has been an issue. And like, didn't want to say like, hey, I have my hip injury still bothering me. I'm just going to say, oh, I needed a breather. But saying I needed a breather was unmistakably worse because your team definitely did not respect that. So I think that was part of it, even though we haven't heard that from the organization. But just to take this kid who you knew was a project, who had such limited reps, barely any starts as a rookie, and then to like pull the rug from him here seems really short-sighted for a team, an organization that's been, I think, pretty forward-thinking in some stuff in terms of player development, in terms of the way that they approach the draft. Undoubtedly, they probably have a better shot to win football games right now with Joe Flacco, and that's just the reality, and that's kind of how the NFL works. But yeah, I mean, I don't know which team needs it. I don't know if they're going to get rid of him because they got him on a rookie contract for a few more years, but tough to go back from him or to him after you pulled him here.
Yeah, I was pretty disappointed. I mean, I saw some people defending like him saying that like he was tired because the play was like pretty intense and stuff like that. And like, yeah, it was obviously a really intense play, but
You
you're the quarterback. You can't take yourself out ever. Like you got to be in there every single play, no matter what. If you're injured, or if you're like banged up or tired, call a timeout, or I don't know, hand the ball off like they did anyways. You know what I mean? Like check it at the line, just hand it off. I don't know. I mean, like do something else. And so I think there are a lot of ways that he could have played that. And if you were tired and you thought about that, just lie about it. I mean, just lie. Say like, oh, I was banged up, like some of my knee, some of my hip. I mean, just that's way better. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's like not everyone is ready for the truth. And as you know, in the leadership example right there, that's like, it's not a good lead. You're not leading by example there. That's a bad decision, especially if you lost the locker room. But so the more I thought about this decision though, I thought that Shane Steichen, like maybe is on the hot seat or something like that, because for the long run, like he has to be your guy basically, right? Like Joe Flacco, maybe you make like a wild card appearance if you get really hot and the defense plays better. I mean, they're like 500, but like you're not winning the Super Bowl. Like you're basically just saving your job. And so like I think that's kind of where his decision making came from, is like, hey, I want to win games now. I am not ready for this roller coaster. And so that's probably how I would guess that they made the decision, because Anthony Richardson has significantly more upside, only played in 10 games. Like, it's just crazy to me that they made this decision here. So I don't know. I don't understand it, because if you were not committed to at least 3 seasons of this, you shouldn't have taken him.
1,000%.
Like, end of story.
Yeah. Everything you said is correct. Like anytime you're gassed, it's just one of those times to be like, lay on the field a little bit longer.
Yeah, right.
Grab your hammy. Yeah, like just have the medical crew come out, walk off the field with them, and stay right there. Keep your helmet on. Tell them you're ready to go right back in. Like, like you cannot tell them you're gassed. Again, I rewatched the game. I watched the game a lot. I had a Nick Cross tackle. I had Richardson over rushing yards. I was pretty locked into the game. I rewatched it on Monday. And again, I'm not a tape bro. I'm not a scout. He didn't play that bad. And it's really hard to say that when he threw completely 2 of 18 passes. If you want to tell me that he's a running back and he's not an NFL quarterback, I cannot believe for a second that you actually watched him play football in the context outside of the red zone or of highlights that you saw or whatever. there were some really good plays, some really good processing, some really good throws that were dropped. This is a team that got 24 pressures on the day. Like, they lived in the backfield. Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. were at his feet all day long. This was a really tough spot. And yeah, he made some bad throws. And yes, he's a less than average or accurate quarterback. It is impossible to argue against that. But there's some good in there that you should probably be nurturing. And I am really hard to it's a tough sell to tell me he's going to get better watching Flacco.
Yeah, I want to add too in there, Michael Pittman Jr. is playing like absolute ass. I mean, he is like, we bet his under last week, actually the last 2 weeks. He barely got there 2 weeks ago. Didn't come close this week. I mean, Benjamin Solak had a thread on it, was like, get out of your break, 11, like do this 11, do this 11. It was just like reels and highlights of Michael Pittman. Just like, I mean, he's just like running like he's got a pole up his ass. Like literally like he's like, can't move because he's like a broken back, like he was supposed to go on IR 3 weeks ago and has just been toughing it out. I mean, presumably just shooting himself up, the training staff's just shooting him up with whatever they can. And he just can't move. He can't separate. And I think he needs all the juice he can because he was, I thought, a good receiver, but not a great one to begin with. And if you're that banged up with an inaccurate quarterback, like this is not going to work. So he did no favors for Anthony Richardson was my point there. So I don't know. I'm in this match specifically. I actually want to fade Flacco. Circling back here, I like the Vikings here in this spot. Vikings -5. I think Flacco is an upgrade on the field right now, but I mean, we've seen Flacco lose plenty of games too. Like he got boat raced in the playoffs by the Browns. I mean, a lot of it has to do with the defense too. If they fall behind, like, yes, he can come back, but he makes plenty of mistakes. He's not like, he just says people love him because he's a lot of good stats. Like Jameis, like he's like stacks stats in, maybe he'll throw a pick like at the 2-yard line or pick 6. And then he gets another drive where he throws another 70, 80 yards. Like, and we are all like sitting there clapping our hands because we have all the prop overs and everything. Cause that's how it goes. But like real football, like doesn't always translate to wins. So I'm on the Vikings here. The Vikings offense played awesome. Colts defense, Malik Willis in week 2, Justin Fields week 4, Titans in week 6, Dolphins without Tua in week 7. And that's the only reason that their metrics even look okay. Otherwise, I think they're a pretty bad defense.
I think they're much improved defensively. They got DeForest Buckner back last week. I think that matters a ton. They lived again in the backfield against CJ Stroud. They didn't convert a ton of sacks, but they were pretty good. I think Buckner is a difference maker. Vikings are going to miss Christian Darrisaw pretty badly. I think that shows up here a little bit. I am kind of with you though too, in the sense that I'm nervous about how the blitz and how Flacco handles an aggressive blitz, because you sometimes see Flores turn it up. Sometimes it's like, oh, they'll blitz 30%, and then sometimes like we're gonna blitz 60% of our dropbacks, and just see if you can make really quick, smart decisions, and see if we can make some tackles, clean it up behind. So I don't have a great feel for the game, but I think there's going to be a ton of prop opportunities here. Both offenses, some defensive props for sure. Play volume could be pretty decent in this spot too. So there's definitely some opportunities here without a doubt. But the Colts defense is one I think we need to watch. They're healthy, and they're as healthy as they're going to be because they've had some season-long injuries. But I think they're going to be a team to watch. And this is actually part of the discouraging part for me with the whole Anthony Richardson thing, is you're going to have Flacco come in, defense starts to show a pulse, they maybe start to win more football games, and they're going to be like, see, that was the right call. We nailed it. And that sucks. So, yeah. All right, buddy.
Tough
Scene. Look at us. It'll be a short show. We nail an hour anyway. We can't help ourselves.
Yeah, we talked about futures for like 40 minutes. So to be fair, I think the actual week 9 stuff, we only went for 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. I think it was good stuff. Hopefully you thought it was good as well. Subscribe wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching. 444 Bets on the YouTube channel. Move the line wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll be back on Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern. Connor and myself, John Highslot for props. I feel it in my bones. Millionaire bet is coming home this week. We're going to get there. So if you want to be a millionaire on Sunday night / Monday morning, you're going to want to watch that podcast and that show, because we're going to get there. Feel it. So good stuff as always, Connor. Appreciate it. Everyone, make sure you come back on Friday for Connor. I'm Ryan. We'll see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.